What's it like being the only Vietnamese environmental engineer that I know of in my entire field? What's it like being like the only technically true engineer in my family? And how did they really react when I told them my career decision? Like, what was their faces? Were they disappointed? Is every single Asian family going to be okay with this? Is this like the traditional normal route that people take? So there's lots of like cultural questions here. And today I want to be covering that. So obviously you can tell that I'm Asian and I am Vietnamese in case anyone's curious about it. But I don't really keep up with my Vietnamese culture too much. I'm pretty whitewashed, to be honest. I was born here in the United States in California. I've been living here my entire life. And although I did visit Vietnam a couple times, I didn't really get too attached to it. So I'm not really culturally accepted. I look Asian on the outside, but truly I am like Americanized on the inside. But aside from that, I still have Asian blood within me. And so that means for all you Asian people out there, you know how Asian parents are. Of course they want the best for you. They want the best for your future. So that means that you'd have to get like a high paying job to have a secure future. That means they'll be pushing you to pursue something like the typical doctor, lawyer, or engineer field. But for the most part, probably just something in the medical field. That's just how it typically goes. So I'm just going to tell you a story. My personal story, my journey towards this route. And I'm sure everyone will have their own story, but this might be more impactful if you're Asian, just because your parents are probably going to be pushing you to do the same thing as me. So you're just going to be listening to a story that is probably told, or that something that you could foresee in the future that will be affecting you. Basically, I've already carved that future for you, and you may be on the same route. So just a heads up, warning. Alright, so let's get into it. So typically after high school, that's when you get into college, and that's when Asian parents will want you to go to the best college out there. And of course that makes sense. You need to go to college to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. You need to get certified by the state, or any professional career you need to get a college degree. So they're really pushing me to become a pharmacist right after graduation. So right after high school, they want me to become a pharmacist. You could just, bypass everything and go straight to like pharmacy school or like a private college that specifies in pharmacy. That all costs like tens of thousands of dollars, but they didn't mind because they knew that it'll cost now, but the investment later on in the future will pay off for it. But I didn't want that. I had something else in mind. But in the end, I was able to convince them, and it was weird, right? Because it's your life. Why would you need to convince someone when it's your life? Even so, I was able to convince them that I wanted to take this traditional 4-year college route, just get a bachelor's in some sort of science field and then maybe jump into medical school later on in the future, or pharmacy school in the future. So they're saying, okay, fine, we'll allow you to do that. Again, you're just thinking, why would you need permission to do that when it's your life? They're not struggling through college and school. It's going to be you who's going to be doing that. So anyway, so I'm pushing through my undergraduate college years. I majored in chemistry. I did that for 4 years and I actually enjoyed it. So even though they forced me to become a pharmacist or like push me towards that route, I chose a field, I chose a major, chemistry, that I actually enjoyed. Even though I was forced to do it, in the end I don't think I would have enjoyed biology or biochemistry or any other social studies major, so chemistry was a good choice for me, even though, again, I was forced to do it. But at some point in time, you get tired of it, you get frustrated, or just the major is pretty difficult to do. Once you're nearing the point of graduation, they are pushing you to become like a pharmacist, so they're pushing you towards medical school after 4 years of undergrad. It's not something that you see yourself doing. It's something that your parents will see that you do, but you don't see it yourself. You don't want to do it because you already are exhausted from 4 years of undergrad. Why would you need another 4 or 8 years of medical school? It's just so easy for someone else to say something when they're not going through it. So this is where my rebellious phase came in. This is where I just thought about, what am I really happy doing? What am I going to be doing for the rest of my life that I enjoy and not what someone else wants me to do? So I'm just here thinking to myself, like, what am I going to be doing for the rest of my life? I know it's really hard to ask like an 18 to 22-year-old what they're going to see themselves doing for the next 40 years of their life. They haven't experienced much of life to even know and make a decision like that. How can they stay committed for 40 years right now as a 22-year-old, nearing graduation? So this is where really you change gears. This is where you start thinking, what are you going to be doing with your life? And this is near the time when my older sister got her master's. So because she got her master's and my parents knew that I was like rebelling against them, they pushed me to get a master's as well. They said, okay, if you're not fully committed to becoming like a doctor, you might as well just keep furthering your education by getting a master's or a PhD. In the end, I knew they were trying to reason with me, thinking that, once you get out with a bachelor's, you'll be working pretty low, you're going to be starting from the bottom, but at least if you get your master's or PhD or any other higher education degree, then you might start off a little bit higher. So yes, it does make sense. I can see that they're trying to convince me into that reasoning, but again, they're still not going to the schooling system. It's going to be you. So that was their attempt to push me to get a master's. And in the end, they did succeed in making me get a master's. So now I have to choose, what do I go into? What specialty do I go into? Do I go into chemistry? Do I stick with chemistry? And of course, through a series of events in school, that was when I chose environmental engineering as my choice to get a master's in. That was my choice. That was my own true calling, you could say, that I wanted to do. But of course, I don't want to just choose any major, think that it's, you're satisfied with the master's, come out with like lots of student debt. You want to do some research. You want to make sure that there is like a demand for this degree. And so in the end, I chose some sort of engineering field, which was still in demand. You still have that title as like, doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I had that engineer title as my part of my belt. But I knew it wasn't in super high demand. So if you think of engineers, you're probably thinking of people with the hard hats, or civil engineers designing. Yes, environmental engineering is underneath that umbrella, but it's not so known. So in the end, I knew deep down, like, I'm going to be struggling to find a job. I didn't know how in demand this field was, because it was pretty new. I'm not the typical civil engineer. I'm an environmental engineer, which is different. It's not so stable. And if you look around at that time, no one really took the environment seriously. You wanted people like software engineers, computer engineers, technology. That was what was in at the time. So again, I knew what I chose was going to be difficult in the end. But you know what? I took that risk. You can push me to become a doctor or work in a medical field or become a computer engineer all you want. Eventually that field will become saturated, meaning there's so many people who want the same thing that you're just going to be one of a million other applicants. At some point in the future, it has to be full. Well, not everyone needs to be a computer engineer anymore. Eventually there has to be someone to be an environmental engineer. And that someone was me. So when I told my parents that I was going to become an environmental engineer, they were like so confused. They're just thinking, what is that? What is the environment? What does that do? Are you sure it's stable? Can it help pay the bills? Or did you still think about pharmacy or working in the medical field? Because that's always stable. The worst part is that they couldn't even enunciate or pronounce the word environment. And so you can see the disappointment in my parents. They're just like really confused, saying, why did you choose this field? And you know what? They were right. I did struggle. I struggled a lot. I struggled for like 2 or 4 years trying to get this position right now because my first job wasn't in this field. Right after I graduated, I didn't get a job lined up right away in this field. I worked in like cancer research. So in a way, it was towards the medical route. And so I knew they were like rubbing it in. I knew they were disappointed because they knew that deep down in the end, they were right. But then lo and behold, COVID happened. So people now were getting sick, and it was actually pretty dangerous to work in the medical field because even, doctors and medical personnel, they got infected, they got sick, and some of them even died. But my job, it was pretty isolated. It was secluded. I could work from home. I didn't need to show up on my facility every single day. I honestly didn't have my life on the line for a job. That's what I'm trying to say here. And then as I was talking to my family about the news about COVID, you can sort of sense the relief that my parents explained when they were talking to me, saying, I'm glad that, you're not sick. I have a friend who got sick from treating a patient. So you can see that complete 180 flip from my parents' decision, that they're glad that their son, their children, are not getting sick because they're not choosing a field or a job that is dangerous. And now, in a way, I can sort of rub it in their face because currently, COVID is still a problem. And the health field is always going to be in demand because you're saving lives and there's always going to be people to save. But also now that the world is seeing that there are effects on how the environment and human health are interconnected, then now there's more demand to be more sustainable. Now there's actually jobs that are trying to open and promote sustainability. You have countries who are now thinking you know what? I think it is smart to take care of the environment because we live with the environment. So if we ruin ourselves, if you ruin our backyard, then that's going to be on us. So in the end, the story is almost like the ugly duckling, where it's you have one outcast who you can just tell that is so different, but then in the end they emerge to become better than everyone else. I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone else, but I'm saying my decision to choose something that was considered bad throughout all my peers and family turned out to be good. So now I'm going to be talking to you specifically. You should be doing what you want to do and what you enjoy in life, not let anyone else tell you what to do, because in the end, it's your decision. They're not going to be going through 8 years of med school. It's going to be you. And who knows? It might end up being like a high-in-demand job in the future. You don't know if you're going to regret it or not. There's so many factors that can be included, but deep down, it's your choice, your life. If it makes you happy, no matter what, even if it's a low-paying job, you should just jump into it. The disappointment that your family feels towards you will be nothing in comparison to the disappointment that you feel in yourself if you were to just pursue something that other people tell you to do. In the end, it hurts so much more because once their life goes through, you're still stuck with their decision, and you don't want that on yourself. Okay, so in the end, I'm just trying to say, don't be disappointed in other people's, opinion about yourself. It's better to be disappointed in yourself by your own decisions than have someone else force you to do something that you don't want to do. In the end, I am happy with my decision, so there was no regret or disappointment in myself. Alright, that's all I have for now. Goodbye.